Stats are a huge part in RPGs, but also many other genres. Whether they come from items, abilities, or other sources, it is very important for you as a developer to have full control over what they do and how they are configured. In the Spark editor, you can find the Stats section under Combat, Stats. This is where you will create, edit, and manage all the current stats in your game. Stats are separated between two types, value and resource. A stat of type value is for things with a single value, such as strength, armor, and other things like that, where you do not need a current or maximum amount. The resource type is used for things such as health, mana, energy, stamina, and so on, where your player or enemy or object will have a current and max value. Let's take a look at all the settings that each stat type has. In the resource type, we have a default maximum value and a default minimum value. We can then decide whether or not this stat should be automatically initialized to its maximum value. In here, we have a pretty big section that you can turn on or off, and these are basically automatic changes based on time. This is basically for you to create a way for this specific stat to either regen or degenerate. In this case, you can see that the health stat from the Spark demo scene is set to go back up by 3% of its maximum amount every 2 seconds. You can even decide whether this should keep happening or not when you're in combat. In this case, I disabled it in combat because it would be pretty annoying to see your enemies gain health automatically while you're fighting them. The change type can be either a percentage or a fixed amount, and the percentage basis can be either maximum or from the current value. And if you choose degeneration, then it will of course go down instead of up. Another thing that stats of type resources can have is the onValue reach trigger. You can add as many as you want, and you can basically define certain actions that should trigger when that specific stat reached a value. In this specific case, you can see that we define the health trigger death whenever it reaches 0. And if we take a look at death here, it is from the trigger plugin, and it basically is a method call of the name death on the combat entity component. But you could trigger pretty much anything you want here because the trigger system is very versatile. Now let's take a look at stats of type values. They have a lot less to define because, as I said before, they're just a single value. You can define the default value, whether they have a minimum value or not, and whether they have a maximum value or not. So you could, for example, cap armor at 100 or strength at 250, whatever you want. The bottom part here with the damage scaling, healing scaling, and stat scaling section is quite interesting, and this is where you will actually define most of your game design and damage calculations. What this could allow you to do is to make, for example, your strength stats directly affect any physical damage by a flat amount, a percentage, or even a formula. But in the demo scene, I did that differently. Instead, I made the strength stat directly affect the attack power stat. We can see that here we have another stat of type value, which is attack power. This one does not have automatic scaling. However, for each point of strength that we get, our character will get +2 attack power. And this is defined here by selecting the target stats and what kind of bonus type it should be, whether it would be a flat amount, a percentage, a multiplier, or once again, even a formula. I've been mentioning formulas a few times now, and I'm going to actually make a video about this next. You may also have seen the UI category field at the top. This is a way for you to basically automate where those stats will be displayed in the character UI. That way you can easily display them under specific sections. And by tweaking the order value, you can control which one should be on top, which one should be at the bottom, etc. The lowest value means at the top. Lastly, we have a third tab, which is templates. This is very useful because in most cases, you will want to, of course, have control over what default values a specific player, enemy, or even object start with. Otherwise, everything in the game will start with the default values set in the stat itself. In this case here, you can see that for the player stats, I created a template which make our player character start with 500 health and 50 stamina. However, the orc NPC starts with 200 health, and the dummy target from the demo scene starts with 10,000 health. To assign one stat template to an NPC, for example, it is very easy. You can see here in the NPC combat entity, we have this stat template field here.